Guess who I'm with? Vesta Giles. She's a filmmaker, writer here in MacArthur Island, near a lot of geese poop and people, but I think we framed this quite nicely, don't you think?
I think we did, Kelsey.
Yes.
How are you, Kelsey? Who are we?
I'm Kelsey, and you are?
I'm Todd. Hi, and we're
with?
live on location. Yes. With Vesta Giles.
Oh my gosh.
And we're going to talk about her film, which is called
The Test.
The Test. We knew that.
I know you knew that.
Yeah, we did know that. You've been busy being interviewed by multiple sources, so
I have been, yes.
Thank you so much for having the time to come talk to us.
Yeah.
This is my first live stream, so it's all new.
Yeah, it's a little scary at first, but we'll survive usually.
Usually, yeah.
Yes.
You'll be impressed by our total professionalism, I guarantee.
Excellent. I'm already impressed.
This is what it looks like. So tell us what your film's about. Let's just start right there.
So the test is about the town of Logan Lake and its 18-year quest to become fire smart. They were the first fire smart community in Canada, and they were doing it before anybody else was doing it. They were pioneers at it, and they spent 18 years preparing for a wildfire that they hoped would never come. And then in the summer of 2021, it did come.
And so is that what fire smart means, is the whole idea of being prepared for?
Yeah, it what it really means is on, there's so many levels of fire smart, but there's the home level of fire smart is creating a space around your home that protects you from wildfire, protects your home from wildfire. And there's really simple steps that people can take, like cleaning your gutters and moving your wood pile 30 meters away from your house, and like all those things, so that fuel isn't right next to your house ready to ignite your house. And that's the basic level of fire smart on a home level. And then in Logan Lake, they also went for they also got what's called a community forest, and there was only a couple community forests in BC at the time, and that gave them control over the forest around the town, so they could mitigate that, and they could set that up to prepare it for wildfire prevention, or wildfire, at least to slow down or stop a wildfire. But they had to have a community forest in order to be able to do that. And so that area 2 kilometers around the town is quite heavily mitigated. They've thinned out the trees, they've limbed the trees, so up to 12 feet, you don't see limbs that are going to inspire a fire to race up the tree and then jump from crown to crown. Yeah. So what their goal is to keep the fire on the ground, and then with homes is to keep the fire away from the home. So that's pretty much what Fire Smart is in that terms. But there's industrial elements to Fire Smart. There's ranching. Totally. So it's a huge program, and it keeps growing. And like now there's Fire Smart plants. So if you went out to Art Naps, you would be able to get Fire Smart plants.
Oh wow!
And so
what makes a plant Fire Smart?
It's not a cedar or a juniper.
Right.
Because they're candles, right?
Yeah,
and
I know.
so they have a bunch of plants there that are going to not light on fire the minute they come near an ember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My dad was a fireman, so he told me
excellent.
all about the cedar trees. Like kids would go around, and that was like the prank to just like
because they're candles. They're the chemicals within them make them like candles.
Yeah.
And I know Kamloops Fire, they on social media they mock the cedars and the junipers. Whenever there's a fire that's got a cedar and juniper, they're all like, oh, who knew?
Yeah, so that might spark some motivation for people to get rid of their unwanted cedar.
Yeah, and just to take a look at, and so in Kamloops, in Logan Lake, and pretty much anywhere in BC now, you can get a free Fire Smart assessment of your home. And you can get, they'll come to your home, and there's a list that they go through, and they'll say you need to, clean your gutters twice a year. You need to keep this, get this wood pile away. It also talks about how low your siding is to the ground, what kind of mulch you're using.
Yeah,
how
mulch.
often you mow your ground, how often you water your lawn. Like there's all this stuff that that it's really easy to do. You know, some of it's just minor changes.
You always have flower beds right next to the house,
Yeah,
which has
yeah.
mulch and
Yeah.
cedars.
Yeah, and right.
Garden
Put up
gnomes,
cedars,
I'm sure they...
Yeah, and
flammable.
garden gnomes, they must be flammable.
Depends on the season,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, so that's, you can actually get a Fire Smart assessment at your home. And in Logan
I
Lake,
love that.
they were also pioneers of another program where they started putting wildfire sprinklers on the roofs, especially the roofs of the houses in the perimeter of the town. But a lot of people in Logan Lake have sprinklers permanently attached to their
So
roof.
they'd be
why
like
remove them?
automatic sprinklers that
Nope.
no?
No, so if a town gets evacuated and because there's a fire coming, one of the first things that the wildfire fighters do and the structural protection people who are going into the town do is that they attach sprinklers to people's houses. They could attach them to the gutters. There's some that kind of clamp onto the gutter, and they're not for residents to use. They're for them to use. They don't use, like in Logan Lake, they didn't use the municipal water system because they don't want to tap the wells, and they also don't want to risk, like pressure changes and things like that. So they have these massive, they look like hot tubs, these massive bladders that they fill up. And one, I think, can handle about 6 houses. And then they have hoses running to these big bladders. And then that's where they're generating water from. And they only put the hoses, or put the sprinklers on for like half an hour at a time, and they cycle through. Because what the water does is that it creates this bubble of moisture, of humidity. And then the embers, when they hit that, they actually bounce off it. And so they turn them on and turn them off, and residents don't get to turn them on at all. They're just there so that it's one less step that the firefighters have to do.
Right. The infrastructure.
Yeah,
then
it's
is
already
in
there.
place.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious about when you talk about Fire Smart, where did these guidelines originate?
They originated with a program in the States, and I can't remember what it's called. Like, this is in like the mid-90s, I think. And there's a lot of sharing of information here, and so they're all groups. There were Southern Interior groups. They were all trying to adopt, the best practices for their climate and for their ecosystems, and sharing, like what was the best way to communicate information and what was the best way to kind of create a system that was going to work for the majority of people. And so I think it did originally start in the States, and then there was a gentleman in Merritt who worked for BC Wildfire, and he did a bunch of other stuff too, and he's passed away a few years ago, and his name was Tom Lacey. And there's a trail named after him, and there's I think the Wildfire Center is named after him there. And he really went to Logan Lake Council in those days in 2003 and said, you guys are like one ember away from a major disaster. And they got really concerned. And that summer of 2003, when they really kind of came to this realization, was the summer of McClure, the summer of the Kelowna fires.
Right.
And the one that really got their attention was the one here, the Strawberry Hill fire, that went up, that just raced up that mountain, just over there, that way. Raced over one of those mountains. And thank you. And so they went, we need to do something, and we need to do it now. And so and part of what they had to do was that they had to educate people about why there was a risk.
Yeah.
Logan Lake is this beautiful little town surrounded by thick forests.
Yeah.
And,
Is it a semi-desert too? Semi-desert?
it's higher up, so I don't think it's semi-desert. It's
not quite as dry as
yeah, it's not
Kamloops.
quite as dry as Kamloops, I don't think, but I don't think it's classed exactly the same. I know it's a different gardening zone. They can't grow hardly anything out there.
Oh.
But they realized that they were in big trouble, and so they applied for funding, whatever they could find and everything, and they just started to do the work. And one of the other original programs that they came up with was they had a Fire Smart youth program. It wasn't called Fire Smart at the time. They had a different name for it. But now it's still running, 21 years later. 21 years later. And it's a group of youth. They're high school students. They're paid through the summer. They learn all about wildfire. They learn all about the trees. They learn from foresters. So they're learning, what are these trees? Why are we doing this? And what they do is they do a lot of the groundwork. They're cleaning up all the sticks and the logs and stuff like that, and they'll burn it all in the fall. But they're out there all summer, working really, really hard hours. But
planting trees too.
No, they're not planting. No, they're thinning. They don't want to plant. They want to thin. Yeah. The whole idea behind this is that they want to create a zone that once it's done, it actually looks very park-like. You know, like you can walk between the trees. It's not like those crisscrossed, saplings that are always down.
And this is to help keep the fires from jumping between.
It keeps them it keeps the fire on the ground, and it keeps the fire from going up into the crowns. So they want to keep it down on the ground. And there's one area on their ski trail. Their ski trails got hit really bad by the fire, really, really bad. But there's one area where they had done the mitigation, and you can actually see in the documentary, we show it, that you can, it's like a park, and you can walk in between it, in between the trees, and you can, are we still good?
No, not really.
Oh, okay.
We've had no audio this entire time.
Really?
I'm so dumb.
Oh no.
All right, so hey, we're live on location now with extra audio.
We were just practicing.
We were just practicing.
Yeah.
Really?
We were working on our miming ability. Thank you for joining us for that.
Okay, that's funny.
Many apologies.
Shall we start again?
How did you know?
How did I know?
How did you know we screwed up? Someone told you?
No, nobody told me. I'm running through my head just thinking of setting up, and I'm going, I don't remember turning on the audio receiver. And thinking I probably did. I'm sure I did. It'd be absurd if I didn't, but I should go and check. And so I did, and now I was okay.
See,
I'm losing microphone rights now.
Well, I embarrassed myself because I had such a horrible introduction. But then you didn't hear it anyway.
Didn't hear it anyway, so
you
it's
get a
fine.
do-over. Oh my gosh.
So
How often do you get a do-over?
I look pretty good at this point.
Okay, yes.
Okay. Let's start
Anyway,
this again.
Do I need to be
Vesta
banished?
Giles. We're here. Did you say Vesta Giles yet?
I have, well, not with sound, I haven't.
Oh my god.
We're here with Vesta Giles. We're in MacArthur Park in Kamloops. On
MacArthur
location.
Island.
MacArthur Island Park. Kamloops. Near some mini golf going on over there. With some goose. And we're talking about Vesta's film, The Test. And we were just
So
talking
sorry.
about fire smart stuff.
So what we said before was The Test is a documentary that's premiering on April 7th, and it's about the town of Logan Lake and their, at the time, 18-year quest to become more fire resilient. In the process, they became the first fire smart community in Canada, and they pretty much pioneered it. Like, they started in 2003 when the fires were really bad here, and they just started. They recognized that they were in real trouble. If like one fire came through there, and they have no protection, and so they started just doing the work that they needed to do to protect the town, hoping that a fire would never come. And then in the summer of 2021, the Tremont Wildfire did come, and it came within 50 feet of one of the houses.
Do you know how it started?
I think it was lightning, but I'm not 100% sure. But they had so many fires on the landscape at that time.
Yeah.
Because there was Sparks Lake, there was Monty Creek, there was and Lytton Creek, and I think it started about a week after the town of Lytton burned. Like, it was just that horrible part of the summer.
It's all a blur because it does happen all at once, and everyone's just focused on saving their home.
And you're focused on like the really, really big fires and not the ones that are slowly gaining steam. And
sometimes they fall behind.
Yeah, and they've got so many resources that they can split between, and there was fires all over the province, like Kelowna, like everywhere.
Yeah.
In 2021.
Yeah, 2021, yeah. And so they spent all this time working on their mitigation, and then I have a day job in Logan Lake, and I was there the day they were evacuated, and I thought, wow, this is going to be the test of that program, and that program hasn't been tested like this before. And there's a sign when you drive into Logan Lake that says Canada's first fire smart community. And I thought, this is the test. And then I thought, I want to tell that story.
Yeah.
At the time, we were still evacuated, so I didn't know what the story was. We didn't know if the town was going to disappear. And it came really close to, people we talked to said it came within a half hour, probably, or less. of reaching the town.
Did any structures get?
Not one. Not one in Logan Lake. And, like Tonka Lake was hit pretty badly. But even there, I think there's a couple structures that went, but it wasn't as bad as it could have been.
Mm-hmm.
But it came within 50 feet of one house, and we interviewed that lady in the documentary. And it was a very emotional interview. I mean, all of the interviews have been very emotional for this.
Sure.
Even just evacuating your town and not knowing if you're ever going to see your town again. All those thoughts, like, your house is your house, it's a thing, but it's also the place where your kids walked for the first time, and all those Christmases, and it's memories, right? Things aren't memories, but no. And then it's nice to be able to tell a good news story. Right?
Yes,
it's still there,
especially around a topic
exactly,
like a wildfire.
Because how many good news stories have we had in the last couple of years now?
Yeah. So how many circumstances, or like how often were people able to look back on what happened around Logan Lake and say, if not for these steps that we took, this could have happened, or this other thing could have happened, but because we made these steps towards mitigating the possibilities, it didn't.
This was the first time that they got tested.
Yeah.
This was their first time, and so one thing that they talk about in the documentary, and this is the people from FireSmart, the people from BC Wildfire, and they say, like, it's like triage, right? So if you're driving down a street and you've got X amount of people, and X amount of trucks, and X amount of resources, you're going to save the things that have the highest likelihood of being saved. Mm-hmm. And those are the FireSmart homes. Those are the FireSmart homes, and then on a larger scale, that's the FireSmart community or the FireSmart neighborhood. They're going to put all their efforts into that because they can win. And that was really chilling for me to have them actually just say that point blank. And it's like triage. Like, if this person is not going to survive, and they've got 10 people who could, they're going to go with the people that they can actually save, right? And they'll do the same with the towns.
Yeah.
And so, it's a maybe an unpopular topic right now, but it's important. And it's important to know that there is stuff that we can do.
Yeah.
FireSmart is all about what we can do. I rent, right? I don't even own my own home, but I do know that we can keep leaves away from the house. From building up in a ridge around the house, because those dead leaves are fuel. I know that we asked our landlord to get rid of a juniper because it was annoying, but I'm really glad we got rid of it because it's a candle.
Yeah.
Cedars and junipers, they're candles. And why have them right next to your house?
And they're everywhere in Kamloops.
They're everywhere here. And they're gross looking. Like, they don't even look good.
I like the smell of them.
Nah, I can't.
But not burned.
No. And so...
I think you can just buy some gin and you can get the smell as well.
Yeah. I'd rather do that. So anyway, that's what it's about, and it's about these people in Logan Lake that had that kind of foresight to do all this stuff and to put all their resources into it, and put all their people-based resources into it without knowing
whether it would work or not. Yeah.
And also without knowing if they would ever get tested, because you always think, oh, well, why did you put all that money and all that time and all that effort into something? Look, it never happened. And then it did.
Yeah.
And so it's become a popular program, the Fire Safe program.
Yeah, the FireSmart is huge. It's growing every year. I just read an article today that there was a town hall in Salmon Arm yesterday with them talking about it there. And
I was going to say, like, what were the next communities
or
do you know
that were how many other communities have picked up on it now?
Oh, there's a lot.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's really had like an exponential growth. It's huge.
I've seen it personally. I'm up at Heffley Lake, and so just driving up and down that road, I've seen, I guess, landscapers or whoever just mowing the side of the highway or the roads.
Yeah. And and when you think about Kamloops, like Kamloops has a FireSmart program now, like most communities and most Indigenous communities too, like they're trying to have FireSmart officers in all of them. And so you can actually request, and they're encouraging you to have a FireSmart assessment, and a firefighter will come out or someone from FireSmart will come out, and they'll and it's a really positive thing. This isn't like they're not going to tell you have to get rid of all your trees right away or anything like that. They're just going to say, it's not scary. They're going to say, make sure you get your gutters cleaned, because all those leaves, they can light on fire, and that leads right to your roof.
Yeah.
And so they're gonna tell you things that you can do to improve your place.
Probably your shingles too.
What kind of siding you have, what kind of roof you have. But they're also not going to say, we don't expect you to replace your roof because of fire smart. But you know what? If you can plant some different plants, if you can move your wood pile, if you've got a fireplace, if you can move your wood pile away from the house so that it's not, a wood pile is meant to catch on fire. That's why you have it, right? And so if you can move it away from the house, it's not going to catch your house on fire.
Right, and I've seen wood piles right next to a shed where there's gas. And tools. And bombs.
So,
it's not good.
So there's a lot that we can do, and we're not just waiting for firefighters to come in and rescue us. We can do something right now. Before there's no fires here right now, we can do something right now to make a difference.
Yeah, it's March, but we're already preparing, and it sounds kind of crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is how it used to be back in the day, but it just seems, is it increasing year by year?
It feels very much like it's
absolutely increasing. One of the foresters from the Logan Lake Community Forest shared a TED Talk with me that was just chilling to watch. It was so well done, and what they talked about was the effect of essentially it's colonization on the forest. So when they stopped allowing cultural burning and restorative burning in the early 1900s, the whole forest changed.
Yeah.
And then gradually we've started to see these monster wildfires because we haven't had fire on the land. We haven't had those cultural and restorative burns that actually prevent, like they save the trees.
Yeah.
The trees are fine in them, but they prevent, they get rid of all that fuel on the ground.
Yeah.
And so Logan Lake, part of what we show in the documentary is part of their mitigation work around the town in their community forest is that they had one part in the ski trail that they've mitigated, and the fire blasted through there, and they think 95% of those trees are going to survive in that area.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and it did exactly it did exactly what it was supposed to do, what a fire would naturally do, because forests actually need fire. And so it burned along the ground. It didn't get up into the crown. It got rid of a lot of that fuel, but it didn't burn right into the soil. Less than 100 meters away, like across the trail, there's a ski trail in between, is an area that they had planned to get to, but then it was too dry and too dangerous to get in there that summer. That was part of their plan. And that part was not mitigated. And the fire went right through there. So you can see them. You can walk down this trail and see mitigated and not mitigated.
Side by side.
And they're actually saving those as test plots now. And UBC is doing research in there. There's a lot of research being done in there on post-fire recovery. Mm-hmm. So if you go to the other side of the trail, it is black. And the soil is white. None of those trees are going to survive.
Yeah,
it went right down into the soil, so it's going to take a lot of time to bring that back. And that's a lot, like through a lot of that watershed there. So that's, you're looking at wildlife habitat, you're looking at water, like where's the water going to go now that it doesn't have roots and everything. So they're looking at having to manage that. And it being able to see it so close together is just such a stark vision of what we could have and what we do have.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the process of the film. You said that from when you were sort of evacuated, you had this moment of like, this is a story.
Yeah.
You didn't know yet what it was going to be, but you knew you wanted to tell it.
Right.
So from there, what did that look like as far as getting the ball rolling, the development, and everything else?
Well, it always looks like funding. Everything always comes down to funding, right? But so Logan Lake was evacuated for a week, and I was keeping notes about things that I thought were really interesting. But there were no camera crews in town, so we couldn't. I knew, and I didn't have funding to put a camera crew anywhere anyway. But it was evacuated. We couldn't get in there anyway. And but I just kept thinking about like how am I going to tell this story, and how do I want to tell this story? And so I just kept making notes, and then like the development process is that for a documentary anyway, for my documentaries, is that I do pre-interviews with everybody. They may not be people that end up in the documentary, but
Right.
I'm learning, and then so then I'm learning who I actually want to talk to in the documentary, and I'm learning what they're going to say. So there's very few times when I'm interviewing people do they surprise me,
Right.
because we've already gone over this, right?
Yeah.
And so I started doing a little bit of that, and then Gold Country, the Gold Country Community Society, which does tourism work for Cache Creek, Logan Lake, like up 70 Mile, Lytton, Lillooet, in that area. They I had done some work for them, some tourism videos, and I said to them, Cache Creek had the Elephant Hill fire in 2017, so they are very keenly aware of the effect of fire, and so I said to them, would you give me, X amount of money, and I could take 2 crew people in to that burned area. And so we waited till the fire was in August, and then I talked to BC Wildfire, and I talked to the Logan Lake Community Forest, and I said, as soon as it's safe and you would allow me, could I take a film crew in there? And I had 2 people available, and they both basically volunteered their time. It was they didn't get paid their full rates or anything, but it was so cool to do it, so they wanted to do it. And we went in with Garnet Miro, who at the time was the forester for the community forest, and he's an amazing speaker, an amazing teacher, and he walked us through. He was also there for safety, because there was a lot of you'd see the ground, especially in the heavily burned area, and you could see some areas where there was like a track like this that was like a ridge in the ground, and that track was actually where roots had burned, and so then it collapsed, right? So there was a lot of this, and it was very dangerous to walk on that soil, so we pretty much stuck to the road that was walking the ski trail part that goes through. And he told us about what was happening, and we got a lot of really amazing footage. We also knew that area was going to be logged for safety reasons. They had to get those danger trees out of there. So we got in there, and we got amazing drone footage of what really I had never occurred to me. It had never occurred to me, and Garnet told me that they were called ghost trees, where when you're looking from above, the trees, all those thick trees, the big ones that are laying on the ground, when they burn, they just leave a shadow of themselves.
Oh, yeah.
And so there's all these crisscrossing shadows that
Oh.
were trees at one point, dead trees laying down. And so we got in there, and he talked about like what had been fire smarted, what hadn't been fire smarted, and the thing that really hit me was how close we were to the town. So I had a drone pilot with me, and I said, can you go from the black to the red? Now the red part is not as badly burned, and it was where they did the
So the fire retardant?
no, it wasn't fire retardant. It was where they had burned the I can't think of the word. It's like the back burn. Yeah. So the back burn had gone where they had done that so that the fire would stop there. Right. But they could do that back burn because that area had been fire smarted. So they could get heavy equipment in there. They could get planes over top of it. The planes could see through the trees to get down to the ground. And the retardant was going to reach the ground. So there was this area where it's not as badly burned. And then you crest the hill, and like 200 meters away from the black area is where the first houses are.
Wow.
And
Way too close to home.
Yeah, way too
Literally.
close. And that wasn't like there was in a lower area called the acreages. It came within 50 feet of somebody's house.
Wow.
And we interviewed her, and it was a very emotional day.
Quite bad.
Interviewing her, and even though she said we were so prepared, but when they actually say you're evacuating, she says you think you're prepared, but you're not.
Yeah.
And just to decide like what is important to me, what
Yeah. And driving away
family
and thinking,
photos.
I may never see my house again. And for them, they had an outdoor cat who was like a
Oh,
moser,
no.
and they couldn't get. She was very skittish, and they couldn't get her to come. But the fire department, like, they kind of put out a call to say, like, who still has pets here? Let us know. We'll feed them. We'll water them. We'll make sure if we can find them, we'll catch them and put them inside. Like, so they were very cognizant of animals. And,
Oh yeah.
And there's a funny story, but I can't tell it.
Okay.
But
Well, after
yeah.
we're streaming. you can
Yeah,
tell.
after we're streaming, I'll tell you a really funny story.
Excellent.
But the
Sounds dirty.
no, but I just don't want to implicate anybody.
Oh.
But they really, paid a lot of attention to that. Like Logan Lake Fire, they're a volunteer fire department, and they're highly trained, and they all have other jobs, and they
Very selfless.
yeah, and during the week of the evacuation, they were part of over 100, I think it was over 120 or 130 structural protection firefighters who were in town.
Wow.
They said as soon as the town evacuated, all these people started showing up from places that had never heard of Logan Lake, and they had never heard of Logan Lake, or they had never heard of those places, and all these fire trucks started coming in, and these crews started coming in, and they said
There they are now.
There they are.
flying in on Western. But they actually said that it brought the town back in a way, that it was a ghost town the night of the evacuation, and they said it actually brought it back. And they and so but these guys were part of a crew that was going around helping, like if a structure was going to catch on fire, they were going to deal with it, and they did what they called radical fire smart. And so they went to people's houses, and they were throwing quads and propane tanks that we have next to our houses, right? They have barbecues, which are meant to barbecue, right?
Exactly.
They're throwing all this stuff away from the house, and
Good. Smart.
yeah, and so they did that all around the perimeter so that those houses would be protected, which by them being protected the next layer of houses, right?
For
So,
sure.
Yeah, and so that's the way it worked, and they were turning on. Logan Lake has a sprinkler program because of their fire smart efforts. So they have most of the towns around the perimeter have sprinklers permanently attached to their roofs in case of wildfire. The homeowners don't turn them on. They're not using the municipal water system at all. They use big bladders that the fire departments bring in, and they turn the water on to create what's called a moisture bubble. They turn them on for like half an hour at a time, and they'll cycle through like the whole perimeter, and then they'll start again. And so they're turning on sprinklers all day, and the fire department, these guys are going around, and sometimes they're doing it on their own houses.
Right.
And or at one point one of the guys says, like, the fire boss who was the incident commander on the ground, he said he took them all up to this one street right next to the ski trails, and he said these 3 houses need to be protected. They're at the most risk right now in this area, that and down in the acreages. And the one guy that's telling the story said, and the middle house was mine. And he was just like, thinking about his little kids and like all that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's an incredible story, and I think the cool thing about this documentary is that it's a good news story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we don't have a lot of good news wildfire stories right now, and it's really, really great to have a win.
Because it could be extremely emotional, and
Oh, yeah.
and you could sway either way.
Yeah.
Be grateful or be extremely upset.
And that's not a spoiler or anything, because the town's still there.
Yeah. But it's it's not just a win. It's a win that people can point to and say, we can take lessons from this too, right?
Exactly.
These are the things they did that helped mitigate it.
Yeah.
Let's apply those to other communities.
Yeah. And since those early days and when they started in 2003, they have been sharing that information. Like Logan Lake is regularly talking at the Union of BC Municipalities, whatever that is.
UBCM, I think.
UBCM, yeah. So they speak at that because all those other municipalities are learning from Logan Lake, and then it's like a big snowball, and it's just gaining. Fire Smart is just gaining steam everywhere.
It should have always been around.
Yeah, but
but at least we're catching on.
Yeah, and we're changing how we're going to look at the forest. And what I heard so many times, people, firefighters and wildfire experts and behaviorists and things like that, they're all saying, we've done this to ourselves, and we need to get ourselves out of it, but we need to start accepting that fire is one of those elements that's part of our world.
Yeah.
We need it. We need it like we need air and we need water. And so we get a choice, though, on how we have the smoke. We can either have it like is happening right now. There's controlled burns happening all over the province because the conditions are ripe for it. So we can have that with small fires that are burning in the spring and the fall, or we can have massive destructive wildfires in the summer. So we get to choose.
Yeah, but that's something I think that I mean, it's maybe not as recent as I might think, but like this idea that we have to sort of let these wildfires naturally occur as part of the mitigation. Like we can't just stop every fire from burning because, like you said, it's kind of a necessity.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there was a period of time, a long period of time, where as people, as man, we were like, oh, we're smarter than nature.
Fire?
We're smarter than nature. We know
not.
better. We can prevent this from happening, and it's good. But it doesn't turn out that way.
Yeah, and there's so many reasons, like, you know, economic reasons. Like we are a province of wood people. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we have our logging industry is enormous, and our wood industry is enormous, and it's a huge part of the fabric of our province. And I even heard somebody say that it was part of the softwood lumber deal, like that we couldn't. You know, there was something about about that, which is sort of what I want to approach next. Is a series that I want to do on wildfire. But we have not let the fires burn. We have not let the forest burn, and the forest needs to burn.
Yeah,
that's part of its cycle. It would have, you know, the one in Logan Lake they said would have burned like every 8 or 10 years, I think, and it hasn't in 80 to 100 years.
Because it helps with regrowth.
It does,
too,
right?
doesn't it?
There's a lot of pine cones that need the heat and the fire to open up.
Oh, like popcorn.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's how they open up.
Neat.
And so we it's like we have water and we have air and we like those. They're our friends. We have to make fire our friend again.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, we're at a cultural shift around that, I think. And one of the wildfire people that I talked to said Australia's already made that shift, and that fire is part of their culture. And so we need to kind of catch up with that. And I think, you know, also looking at, like we are already planning for smoke.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even if we think that, you know, it's not going to happen to us, it's happened to us so many summers that the powwow has moved. The Kamloops powwow has moved to June.
Really?
Because August is going to be too smoky. Or the odds of August being too smoky are already there. Festivals are moving. People, even me, I'm thinking about doing this series, and I'm creating 2 shooting plans. One of them is indoor, one of them is outdoor. Because shooting in smoke is horrible. And it changes actually the color of the air, so that you have this tone of air that's just uncorrectable. And that's part of what I'm thinking about, is like, okay, if I want to do this episode, can I do it all indoors? You know, how can we talk about trees without actually going into the forest?
Right.
If it's too close, if it's too hot, too dry, and they close off the forest, how can we talk about the forest without actually going there?
You could be like Bubble Boy.
Oh, right, yeah. right. And so, you know, whether we like it or not, we're already preparing for it.
Yeah.
We're already maybe not embracing it, but accepting
that this is going to be an annual
thing.
Don't fight nature.
Yeah, and the more they do these controlled burns that they're doing right now, the better chance we have of not having those big wildfires. But we've had a drought all year.
Yeah.
You know, Kamloops is already looking at our water restrictions and changing our water restrictions because we don't have enough water right now. And the river is epic low.
Yeah, where I live, we use well water, and we're already concerned about not filling the pool.
Yeah.
I know, play my violin, will I?
Oh no, Kelsey doesn't get a pool this year.
But you know, like,
yeah, it's scary.
We're really at a position where it's got to change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So now that the film's done, what's sort of like the next stage for it? I know it's got a premiere here in Kamloops.
Yeah, it's got a premiere, and then it will go to the Wildfire Resiliency and Training Summit, which is the Fire Smart Conference, and that is in Prince George this year at the end of April. So they have a movie night already planned. They're going to have popcorn and candy, and essentially what I'm hoping this is going to be is something that all of those people who are doing the Fire Smart programs in their communities can take this film to those communities and say, here's what we want to do.
Yeah.
And here's an idea of how it worked.
Yeah.
And they can show that film. We're even going to look at having a version on the FireSmart website that that organizations could download, because relying on streaming in a lot of smaller communities isn't feasible. Even in Logan Lake on some days, it's not feasible.
Right.
And so we don't want it to take 10 hours to watch a 1 hour film, right? So they can download it and then just, run it directly from a flash drive. So,
Right.
So that's sort of the plan. And then after it goes to Prince George at the end of April, then we're putting it on YouTube. So it's going to be 100% free and available to everybody, and it's not going to be geo-blocked. So if you're in Chile and you understand English, you could watch it.
Cool.
Yeah.
And so, is there a website that people can go to now to like learn about the film or anything like that?
They can go to my website, which is really awkward, but it's Vandelso, which is VANDELSO Productions.ca. And there's a test page on there. You can buy tickets to the premiere there. You can see the trailer there. The trailer looks awesome.
It does look awesome. I really love the quality, like really fantastic.
Yeah.
Editing. And
Joseph Perzon is my
music.
editor and my DP, and he is someone who just like absorbs. Like he cannot get. He's always getting better and better and better, and striving to do more and to do it even better. And he just knocked it out of the park with this film. Like really, really did. And part of this film too is that, like I said, there was no cameras on the ground except for people's cell phones, and so. For that week, there's an area of the film that is all the evacuation week. We're relying on people's cell phone photos.
Oh, really?
And cell phone pictures, and there's
front row seat.
Yeah, exactly, because we didn't, otherwise we have no footage, and it actually adds a real air of desperation to it.
Oh, I bet the people filming it at those moments as it's happening, it would be.
And you have to know, so there was a wind shift that they acknowledged that the wind did shift about. They think about 20 minutes before it was about to hit the town. And so as soon as that wind shifted, they were able to get planes in. And when that first plane came in, I think every firefighter put their cell phone up to show it, because they said that it was, like, a lot of them thought the town was gone. Even in Logan Lake, the firefighters, they said, there was times when I thought the town was gone.
Right.
And they pulled them all back at one point. And he thought they were pulling them back because the town.
It was time to sort of give up. And
yeah.
What was the reason they were pulled back?
They were pulled back partly, I think, because there were going to be so many planes coming in that they would be hit by retardant, but also they just needed to regroup for that one last push and one last effort.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things you talked about earlier was this notion that like it doesn't matter how prepared you think you are when it finally hits, and I think that's. At that point, you're right. You have to sort of hand it over to fate a little bit. Yeah. But that's got to be still terrifying, because you've done everything that you think you could do.
And you don't know if it's enough.
And you still have to just sort of walk away and...
And one thing so many people that were involved in the early days don't live in Logan Lake, or they're not in Logan Lake now. And the ones that I did get to interview, and I said, what did you think when you saw that the fire was heading towards Logan Lake? And one of them said, like, if it's going to go anywhere, that's the place that's going to fight it. And they said that this would be the test. Like, so many times they all said this was going to be the test of the program and of that 18 years worth of work.
It's interesting. That's also the name of the film. Is that related?
I knew it right away. I knew right away that I knew it was going to be the test.
Yeah.
It's catching though. It's a catchy title.
And it's not just the test of what Logan Lake did, but it's the test of the Fire Smart program.
Totally, yeah.
Well, it also tests how you would react.
Yeah.
You know, as a
they were being tested on a personal level, on a community level. We were already being tested on a provincial level, and a lot of people were looking at it going, like, there was a lot of eyes on Logan Lake, having known the work that they had done, and wondering if it was going to survive.
Yeah. Do you have any sort of favorite stories that you heard or moments that you experienced over the making of the film? Or
I think what I did was I fell in love with people who were first responders. Like the idea that they're choosing to put themselves in that place. The wildfire fighters are choosing that. If they wanted to make a bunch of money, that's probably not the way to do it.
Right.
Given the effort that goes into it. But the one funny story that I did hear that I can tell is two guys were heading up the Todd Lake Road, and they were going to actually liaise with the ranchers, and the ranchers lost a lot.
Yeah.
The ranchers really suffered, and we've interviewed the ranchers.
Because they would have been more on the outskirts.
Yeah, and they got hit hard.
mitigation.
Their cattle were out. They got hit very hard, and we've interviewed those guys. But the smoke was so thick. So these two guys, who one is the forester and one is works for Vesta Wildfire, and they were going down to communicate with the ranchers, and they were going down Todd Lake Road, and they saw one house that it looked like there was some flames moving to it, and they thought, we can do something about that. We can just create a barrier there, and so they thought that was great. But the smoke was so thick that they were walking and they didn't realize there was a pool. And one of them stayed on the, was talking, and he's walking along the sidewalk, and then the other one went right in the pool.
Oh my God!
and he just. And because the smoke was so thick that they didn't know there was a pool there. And all of a sudden he was just gone. And I think that was one of the, and I didn't realize until we went out and interviewed BC Wildfire that I would actually get to meet, we had called him Pool Guy for months. We had called him Pool Guy. and I was like, oh my gosh, you're Pool Guy. And he's like, yeah.
You're a little starstruck at that moment.
And my wallet and my cell phone.
Wow.
Yeah. But that's how thick the smoke was.
And so, what has been sort of your biggest takeaway? What would you point to as what you've learned from this experience, or stuff like that?
I think the biggest thing that I've learned, and it's reflected in the fact that it's taken us over a year to edit it, is that the wildfire story is not cut and dry.
Yeah.
It's not simple. It's not just the people on the ground. There are so many layers to the story that we had 17 hours worth of interviews that we actually condensed down to an hour and 5 minutes.
That's tricky.
Was that one of the hardest parts of editing?
Oh yeah. And Joseph and I approach it from two different, from opposite ends actually. So I'm a word person. Joseph is a visual person, and so I had every interview transcribed with time codes. So I could say, yes, this person said this at this time. And this person said this at this time. And we can take this and we can take that. But I was looking at it at words. And the document that I've got them all transcribed into is well over a minute. But I really learned a lot about what they said. Like I could, Joseph would say, we need this. And I'm like, I know that. I can find it. And then I give them the time code and who said it. And but that's what I really discovered, is that I didn't even get everything that I wanted. I didn't even talk to all the people that I
Of course.
And the layers to the story were so many. And one thing, you don't think about, all these firefighters come into a town to save a town. Like they'll go into Fort McMurray, they'll go into, last summer was Fort St. John and all these other places. Who's feeding them? Where are they getting gas for their trucks? Where are they sleeping? There's so many things like that. Like it is actually moving an army.
Yeah. So I have experience. I used to work as a medic, and this was in 2017. So I was a medic at the Summerland, Peachland area, and it was quite a show. Like there were not a show, but I mean it was quite an organization of cooks and really good food, but they're cooking all day, 3 meals or 2 meals a day, and then just but you'd have to move on a whim because of the wind, and you have to find a place that's safe.
And you have to think about how many calories those firefighters are putting out.
Oh, for sure,
They need good food. And what happened in Logan Lake was that for some reason the food part didn't work out in the beginning, and everything kind of came together, and they had the grocery store manager called the fire chief, and he said, I can't get past the checkout or the checkpoint, and we're going to lose everything in the grocery store. Take my food. And so the fire chief actually owned a cafe at the time, and so he opened up the cafe.
Oh wow.
And there was council members, there was district staff who had stayed, because they had to help. And everybody jumped in to cook, and they went through the grocery store and cleaned it out because they were going to lose everything in there. And they made, the firefighters are saying, I've never eaten like this at a fire.
That's an amazing degree of support.
Oh yeah, from the community, and
Yeah.
also the guy that owns the Petrocan, Dave Morrison. He came in and made sure that they had fuel for the trucks.
Good.
He gave away every bit of water and Gatorade that he had, and just did what he could. But he made sure that he came in every day that gas station was open for them. And then it all gets dealt with later, right? But it's just the thought that this is needed, and it's not being dealt with. So here, and what a great solution with the grocery store.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because it's just going to go to waste otherwise.
Yeah.
So,
I forgot what I was going to say. Oh,
Was it
with all that unused footage,
Yeah.
what are you going to do with it? Are you going to keep it for later projects?
I would love to do a bunch of videos, a bunch of 10-minute-ish videos, looking at different aspects of the story that we didn't even get to cover. Aspects like the fact that volunteer firefighters, it's like SAR, it's like search and rescue, right? Like, these people are putting out their time and everything. Why are they doing that? Why are they training so hard? And why are so many communities relying on volunteer firefighters? Like, we think they're kind of, just going to put out, they're going to spray a hose and that's kind of what they're trained for. These guys are highly trained. I'd love to do something on volunteer firefighters because I think they're the unsung hero of the small town.
oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. I'd love to do something on small governments, like the massive amount of organization that it took, and that they take it so personally because they know everybody in town. So when they put out that evacuation order,
It is personal.
yeah, they didn't take that lightly, and and also things like BC Wildfire. Like, we were out there for a day. We thought we'd get an hour, and we were out there for a day, and it was 39 degrees in my car in the shade when I got back in it, and it was a gross day. Like, my crew got burned. We were done. But we got the best interviews, and they were all unexpected. Like, they were just dragging people out. Once they realized they could trust me, I think, they were dragging people out for us to interview. And we're sitting there, like, it was part of the season where they could have been deployed at any minute. We really didn't know how much time we had with them. But there's all these planes around, and I would love to do something on what plane do they use when.
And how do you decide?
Yeah, and how do you decide? And what are all these? Like, there's all these different sized planes, and it's like, okay, so when's that one used, and when's a helicopter used, and what's the strategy there? And I'd love to do something on that, and I'd love to do something on cultural burning. I really want to do some stuff on cultural burning. We didn't get to talk on it that much. We tried, but it didn't work out getting the people that we wanted, and there's just so many people that we talked to, and they were so interesting, so knowledgeable. Like, the wildfire experts that we talked to, I could sit and listen to them all day, because they were talking about things that I never thought about.
Yeah.
And we went to Apex Mountain to talk to a guy named Kelly Johnston, who's a world-renowned fire behaviorist, and he's also the fire chief at Apex. And we interviewed him in this beautiful fire area. It was a gorgeous park. It was mountain biking trails, and what we used of him was this much.
Yeah.
And I could go on forever listening to him.
That must be somewhat frustrating having to
cut out.
These gems that just don't.
Yeah, because you're really killing your darlings.
Exactly.
You're absolutely killing your darlings, and I've. So in that massive 180-page document, I've got things highlighted all over the place, and then I'm like, can't use that, but it was really good, and it just didn't, like, the thing with documentaries is that you don't just throw everything into the film. Like, there is a story, there is a rise intention and a fall intention, and then looking at it's not just like maybe if 5 people said something, who said it best?
Right.
And who said it in a way that leads to the next thing. Like, picking those, tweezing out those little threads is just so hard, but it's so valuable. Like, it's such an art form, and I think a lot of people that don't do documentaries think it's just like writing an essay, but it's not. There's a lot that goes into it, that you're looking at story and character and location, and it's just an unscripted story.
Yeah, and quite often you don't even really know what it's going to be until you're approaching the end of it.
Yeah, like you think, so that's the thing. So I can be as prepared as I can be when we start filming, and we filmed for 18 days. And I could be as prepared as I can be, and I can know everything that everybody's going to say. And then somebody's going to say something out of the blue that is just going to send everything sideways. And it's going to send the story sideways too. And I always leave, so my crew is amazing, and we've worked together on a number of projects, so we're very close, we're very comfortable around each other, and they're very smart, and they're very, I have 2 cameras and a sound guy, and they're all very talented in their own rights, doing their own films and projects, and they're also very well-rounded, like they're very thoughtful, they're very educated in terms of what's going on in the world and in their worlds. So I always leave a space at the end of an interview where I basically say, do you guys have any questions?
Very cool.
And so that it serves a number of purposes that I didn't really realize how powerful they were until we were halfway through this, and I thought this is a really good thing to do. So this person I'm interviewing is used to talking to me. They talk to me in the pre-interview. It's not rehearsed, but I know what questions I'm asking. I know what answer they're going to give me. But when somebody else asks something and it's not me, there's this spontaneity that happens. And we might never use it, but sometimes it led the conversation in a direction that we weren't thinking of going, because this camera guy, lives in this place, and this matters to him. So he'll ask a question, and then the story just goes in that direction. I'm like, whoa, that is really awesome. And having that kind of freedom with those guys, they're also willing to talk. They don't just stare at me like I'm just here to hold the camera. Like,
Right.
They're not like that. They're very involved in it.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one of the things that's it's so nice about working with a small crew that I'm very, very familiar with, and I know what they care about, right?
Working on a large set versus a small set, it's so different, and the bigger the set, the more in your own lane you have to stay, and you kind of lose creativity, and it just feels more fun when you can wear a few hats at once. Yeah,
and like on my cruise, if somebody's sitting around doing nothing, and I'm paying them for that, I carry gear. We all carry gear.
For sure.
I had a very badly broken arm for 8 weeks, and one of my camera guys had to do it with my seatbelt. And this wasn't in this project. This was in a different project, but they're just that close, and he's just like, I do this for my 3-year-olds, right? And I'm like, that's off. But
yeah, I wipe ketchup off Todd's beard all the time.
all the time. I'm so messy.
But they're not, like, we know each other well enough that most of us don't pack Joseph's car, because it's so,
he knows how he wants it packed.
It's so jammed with equipment that it's like Jenga, and if you don't get it right, you don't get everything in. And so we just carry everything to the car, and then Joseph does all the meticulous planning.
For sure.
Yeah.
So it seems as if you are, as a filmmaker, drawn to documentaries more than...
Yeah, which surprises me.
Yeah. Why? Okay, what does it surprise you?
It surprises me because I started out narrative.
Yeah.
I was totally narrative. I wrote a movie of the week that was produced on Lifetime in the States.
Very
what?
cool. Yeah.
Tell me.
Oh yeah,
Tell me
it's
all
a murder
about
mystery.
it.
It's a thriller. But I didn't. So when you're a screenwriter and you don't produce something, then they can do things to your script, and you watch the final result, and you're like, oh, I never would have put that in there. That's horrible. But you just have to smile and go, okay, not my film. I let it go. So that was definitely the stream that I thought I was heading into. I've also written 3 children's books, and I'm writing an adult novel right now, and so that's definitely sort of where I thought my mind was going. And then StoryHive actually had this is probably 2017, 2018, maybe it's 2018. They had a series of workshops in the interior for documentary. It's one-day workshops, and it was with Kevin Eastman and Aaron Pryor and Anna Carrales. I can't remember her last name.
I think I might know Kevin.
Yeah, so he's a documentary filmmaker, does a lot of stuff on Knowledge Network.
Yeah.
So I missed the one in Kamloops, so I drove to Vernon to do this. And I thought it was just, a good thing to know about and all this. In one day, I came out of there going, screw narrative, I want to do documentaries. This is what I want to do. this is the cool thing. And also it's those smaller crews, right? It's the intimate crews. You're still telling a story, but it's not just people following a map. You know, like when you look at a script, it's a map. And everybody just says, okay, we do this, and this, and this, and we're done. Right. There's so many elements of surprise in the documentary.
Right.
So many elements of elements for things to be greater than you thought they were going to be.
So what was it from the sort of like the Story Hive workshop that really propelled you in that direction?
Well, I think Kevin is an amazing instructor. Like, he and I have chatted a couple times.
Yeah.
He's an amazing documentary maker too. And so when I saw him, so during this one day thing, he would show clips from his documentaries, and then he would talk about the storytelling process behind that. And I was just like really, it was like I'd been in the dark and then I was in the light. Like I just was so entranced by this, and so entranced by the the thoughtful effort that he put into telling those stories.
Right.
And I just thought, this is it. This is what I want to do. But I still love narrative. I mean, I still have ideas for web series and stuff like that. I still love that, but and I don't want to ever say this is all I'm ever going to do.
For sure.
I'm never that person. I always want to do multiple different things, like novels and stuff like that. But you know, having this element of surprise, like he did let one go.
Did he?
Yeah. Oh my God! Wow, I've never seen that.
Big.
Wow. that would hurt if it hit you. Like, that's
where did it go?
Near the tree.
Oh. My friend, she thought she had icing in her hair.
Oh no.
It wasn't icing.
No, I don't want to know about that.
Don't taste it and find out.
Yeah. So yeah.
So you'll always go back and forth to
I think
narrative.
so, but
you're creative.
I think it's also as an independent filmmaker, I think it's easier to get a documentary off the ground than it is to get a narrative film. I think in terms of funding, you don't need that big crew. You don't need that.
True.
You don't need those trucks.
You don't need actors.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's more manageable that you can actually, like, I see so many people, you know, languishing because they can't get their script sold, and they can't get their script sold, and they can't get their script sold, and they're not doing anything else in the process. And I think that's kind of sad, because you could be building up so much more experience
Totally.
by doing small projects. And so one of the most perfect projects we did is a 3-minute video, and we did it. Joseph and I did it a couple years ago for Tricia Selman, and both of us look at that story, and it's in 3 minutes we told a story that surprised us, and we both were so excited about it because the whole story fell into place so beautifully. And whether your documentary is an hour or 2 hours, or if it's a series, or if it's 3 minutes, you want to reach that sweet spot where you told the story and you lit up the world.
You want to create some sort of emotion.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There's that, and that's why we really look at the pace of a story. The, you know, like like we use Milanote to put our stories together.
I'm not familiar with that. Is that like an app or?
It's like a website app. If you go there, I'm sorry, because you're never going to come up.
Oh, okay.
But it is really great for visual artists. So if you're a filmmaker, you can be putting in storyboards and stuff like that, and it's really set up for that, and it's set up for sharing. So we can work on, like, quite often I'm at my house and he's at his place in Raleigh, and I could see him moving stuff around.
Oh, wow. And
then I'm you know, messaging going no, and I'm moving it back, and or I can go, oh yeah, okay, I can see how that would work. So, or he'll, like, I can see him on the screen and he's like circling something, go, this is what I'm talking about, and then we're messaging on Facebook, and he's like, look at this. And I'm like, oh, okay, I get that. So I can't remember why I was talking about that, but the storytelling, like, we actually have emotional beats.
Right.
I'm color coordinated, so I like my emotions by colors. Joseph likes height and, like, mountains,
okay,
and peaks and stuff.
Oh. And music too.
Oh gosh, yeah. And he does a lot of the music. So at some point, I would like to have, the first short film the Story Hive did have an original score. I would love to get back to there. Danielle and Afi and I had actually talked about that.
Oh, very cool.
But the short film I was going to do didn't work out. Didn't work out yet. still probably going to
Such a
happen.
small world.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I also, I mean, I went to high school with her brother.
Oh, really?
So
Oh.
I've known of her because she was a couple years older than
Yeah.
us. But it's Kamloops, right? It's
It-
everybody
yeah,
knows
exactly. It
everybody,
seems that
and
way,
it's a
yeah.
small town.
And I feel like we all need to network
Yeah.
together because
Yeah.
there are so many highly talented people,
Yeah.
but we all need to find each other
I
and,
know.
and collaborate.
Yeah. And I think, and so we're looking at, still at some point I'd like to do that short film. But the music, Joseph has picked a lot of music that, like, he knows that I prefer a symphonic styled soundtrack. So he has definitely chosen music. It's Artlist or whatever, I can't remember whichever he's using. But he's picked music that he knows, I want it to be timeless.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that kind
Which you
of
can get from symphonic.
yeah,
Right? Yeah.
that kind of a score is definitely, it's not a score, but that kind of music is definitely definitely timeless. And one of my favorite movies ever is not timeless, and it drives me absolutely bonkers to watch it. And the movie's Lady Hawk.
Oh,
From
okay.
the 80s?
It's
Mid-80s?
Michelle Pfeiffer, right?
Yeah, Michelle Pfeiffer, Matthew Broderick, and Rutger Hauer. And it's this beautiful, sweeping epic of this myth of this woman who turns into a hawk. By day, she's a hawk. By night, she's a woman. And the man she loves, by day, he's a wolf. Or by night, he's a wolf. By day, he's a man. So they're always together, but never
Lady
together.
Hawk and Man Wolf.
Yeah, exactly. But the soundtrack is the Electric Light Orchestra, and it drives me like I can't turn the soundtrack off without getting rid of the audio.
Yeah.
And it's not the Electric Light Orchestra. It's the music. There's a way it can be good music,
Yeah.
but there's a way it can be very, very dated. And sometimes dated is good when it matches the story.
That it was like scary.
Oh,
and
yeah,
it
yeah.
all had to do with like just no laugh track.
Yeah.
And just
Yeah.
change
Yeah.
the music.
Yeah.
And like Ross is scary,
Yeah.
guys.
And one thing too is I saw that those master classes.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So I did a bunch of them, and one of them was the Ron Howard one on directing.
Okay.
And he talked about being on a plane, and his headphones weren't working, and he was like kind of pissy about it, like, oh, my headphones aren't working. And Indiana Jones was on, and he thought, well, I'll just kill some time. I don't feel like working, so I'm just going to watch Indiana Jones. And his headphones weren't working, and so he had no sound. And then he said it was the most amazing experience to watch that film without sound, because all of a sudden then he saw the film. And he said,
Without any
okay,
distractions,
Then
yeah.
he goes, okay, so that's like that kind of a shot, and this, like, he actually could break it down, whereas the music just takes us, right? It takes our emotion, so the emotion is taken out of it when you don't have the music.
You
just
just
sort
see
of-
it for the technical
Yeah,
way it's
exactly.
done.
And he's like, oh yeah, that's actually not that expensive of a shot. He said, like it was really cool to have him analyze that. Now, quite often I will watch something without the sound,
Yeah.
just to get an idea of what's actually happening in front of me and be able to break it down.
Something I want to get in the habit of doing more of now that I'm starting to buy DVDs again. I'm
Yeah.
getting into 4K
Yeah.
now because I want to spend more time on commentary tracks.
Mm-hmm.
I used to really watch those like in the early 2000s,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I don't anymore.
What is that?
It's sort of when you have like the director or the editor or the
They're
the
talking
cast.
through
They
it.
talk
Oh, I
about
see.
the
Yeah.
making of the film as you watch the film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very
I've always
cool.
liked watching the bloopers myself.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to be
Yeah.
in a blooper.
Yeah.
You have
That's
been,
your
Kelsey.
I know. It's
You have
Is
been.
that your goal, to be in a blooper?
in a blooper or on the news.
Okay.
made
But yeah, like I love audiobooks, and I love it. The Richard Osman's Thirsty Murder Club audiobooks have this half-hour talk between him and the narrator, or him and another author, where they're talking about like different parts of the story, and I love that.
Yeah.
Like I just love hearing about him, bloopers that he had in the first book, and going, oh, I wouldn't have done that because I don't live in England, but I guess he got nailed on one of them where he went, the characters went to this town and they were looking for a Tesco, which is a grocery store, and they went into this Tesco, and then all these people that live there said, we would love to have one, but there isn't one here. and I thought, ooh, good one.
Before we wrap things up, I want to throw a controversial question at you as a creator. What do you think about AI?
Ooh.
Oh, aye.
AI.
I'm old school. I love fountain pens. I love ink. I love paper. I can see where it will be helpful. I can see where it's out of control, and I think a lot of people that don't have a lot of creativity or skill see it as a shortcut, and that's That's where I think the problem is. I am absolutely 1,000% opposed to AI audiobook narrators. And one of the things that they wanted in the contract for the Screen Actors Guild was the right to scan a background actor,
Yes.
pay them for 1 day of work,
And then just keep
they'd
using
never
them.
see them again.
Yeah.
'Cause,
And so 100% not okay with that. Not okay with where they're getting their data.
Yeah, because it's all the
They're-
data
they're-
being pulled
yeah,
from
they're,
existing
they're,
art.
they're pilfering data. But then I can also see where, so I because I don't want to diss something unless I've tried it. So I did try ChatGPT because a lot of authors are using it for different things, which I don't really agree with, but I thought, okay, I'm just going to play with this to see what it does. And sometimes I do get really tired writing ads for books, like Facebook ads and things like that. And so I did say, okay, so this is what my book's about. Write me a 100 or a 50-word blurb, right? And I have a background in copywriting.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm just tired.
I get it.
And so it came up with this stuff, and I was just like, oh yeah, put this in front. You start, lead. Don't lead with the, right, or like mix your sentence structure around. I'm like, okay, great, thanks for that. And then I tossed it, and then I just did what I actually know how to do. But
But it gave you
it reminded me what I needed to do, but I did
sure.
not use one word of it. And then in the wildfire sphere, that's actually part of what I want to talk about in this series is Alberta Wildfire has an app that is, I think, I don't know how functional it is right now, but the plan is that it will be able to predict where wildfires will start and
Okay.
where they will go, how they will move, and how they will behave. I asked one of the behaviorists that I had interviewed, I'm doing some pre-interviews now for the series that I want to do, and I said, so what do you think about this? And he said, it's like anything with AI, it's garbage in, garbage out, right? So if it doesn't have great data, it can't do anything.
Right.
It's not going to give you great output if you and who's quantifying the quality of the input in order to assess the quality of the output, right? But in a creative land, I hate when they reverse age actors.
Oh, really?
Oh, I would rather not see the actor than have Harrison Ford reverse aged by 50 years.
yeah.
It creeps me out.
Yeah, it's a
I
little
actually find it
creepy, yeah.
very creepy. And I actually think that, for people that are writing books with AI, we're going to end up with a very dumbed down world. So people that are really willing to put in the creative effort, there's more effort, obviously, but I think
But that's
what
fun.
but what humans are going to create is still going to be more surprising and more interesting and
Absolutely.
more astonishing.
Absolutely.
I can't believe that AI is ever going to astonish me, except for the fact that it's still here. So that's sort of my thought on AI, is that I'm very much opposed to it and where they're actually saying, like, in the British TV industry, it could replace a third of the workers. or more.
Jeez,
Wow.
that is scary.
And that's creative roles you're talking
Yeah,
about.
that's creative roles. So when you talk about, we can just generate this audio now. We don't have to have it recorded. So you're putting a sound engineer out of work, a narrator out of work, and other people who are, they're doing their art in a way that is responsive. And I think that's what AI is not going to be able to do, is respond with feeling. It can respond with prediction, like, I expect
Yeah.
you're going to like this, but it's not going to be the one at the end of my interview that says, hey guys, what do you think? Do you have any questions? And it's not going to create that kind of astonishment. And
It can't really pull at your heartstrings.
no, but it knows how to do that. Like, it knows these kind of words will do that, and these kind of tones
Exactly.
will do that. But is it really gonna astonish me? Like, in a couple of years, when people are tired of it, and they're tired of seeing the exact same thing over and over and over again,
Hopefully it goes back to
they're
just
going to be.
being a fun
I
novelty.
think they're going to be begging for originality.
Yeah.
Original thought, and there's something about humans that make original thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very wise. All right, I think we can wrap things up. Thank you so much
No problem.
for hanging out with us,
Thanks for
and
having me.
apologies for our very silent opening 10 minutes or so.
It's a silent film.
It's a silent film, exactly. Is there anyone you want to say hello to, as Kelsey likes to
Oh, yeah.
encourage people to do at the end of a stream?
Oh,
Hi, Mom.
I always want to say hi to my family.
There you
Okay,
go.
go ahead.
Hello, family.
Hi,
Hello.
family.
They're all over the world right now, and yeah.
All
Very
over the
exciting.
world.
Yep.
Where? How?
I have a
where?
cousin in Germany who just
Wow.
came back from Pakistan, and
Wow.
I've got my brothers in Victoria, and yeah, they're spread out.
Very
But
cool.
yeah.
All right.
Cool. I'll say
Family's
hi to my
everything.
dog. Hi, Saya.
Hi, Saya.
You can say hi to your child.
Oh, my child will never watch this, but hello.
Okay.
I know.
Hello, Reagan.
Like, my
You won't
family
watch
won't
this.
either.
Uh,